for me, it all started with Star Wars. As a child, like all children of my generation, I was obsessed with Star Wars. But not the big epic battles, the huge, laser guns and lightsabers and all that. What I was fascinated by was the more like mundane details of domestic life and the intimate spaces, the interiors of spaceships, much more interesting to me than a battle. And so my tribute to the sci-fi genre was to explore the more domestic, working class side of that universe. Which, of course, is the inspiration for Star Wars. But that was a more recent discovery for me. The other inspirations at the top of the heap is Moby Dick. It's a very playful sort of reinterpretation of Moby Dick. And then a lot of the things that I loved as a child, whether that was Calvin and Hobbes or the movie Goonies, which is a popular kids movie of my era. That was the greatest pleasure of working on the book, was the world building. Perhaps in another lifetime, I would be a conceptual designer for movies, because it's a very fun distraction to just design spaceships and figure out how the interiors look, design different species. Similar to the process in Habibi when I was researching. The research was a pleasure. At a certain point, I realized I'm postponing sitting down to write a book. Oh, yes, definitely. I think there's the same danger with a book like Habibi. It's so saturated with detail that it can be overwhelming. But, I mean, part of that's born out of remembering what it was like to read books as a child, where you could spend days and hours fixated on one book, or a single panel of a comic strip would be burned into your memory because you could get lost in it for hours. So I was trying to recreate that experience. For me, that's part of the pleasure of comics, of bande dessinée, is the first read can be as fast as necessary. You blow through the story, but then the pleasure is in the revisiting and just getting lost in those images. Well, I couldn't help but draw from my own childhood, sort of a working class. And by working class, I mean my father was a plumber, and the people around us were farmers and truck drivers. So there's a lot of that energy in the book. Like, these aren't, space heroes. It's a very average Joe sort of family. And the first drama of the book is that Violet's school, Violet is the 10-year-old star of the book, is eaten by space whales. So the first drama is that her parents need to simply find a new school for her. Well, Habibi is a story of two orphans, so they don't have families until the very finale of the book, and then they forge their own little misfit family of their own. So in that sense, Space Dumplings was sort of, or Space Boulettes was a sort of natural continuation. We end Habibi with a family unit, a mother and father, and a little daughter, and then we get to actually explore that dynamic. And actually, they have a very healthy sort of family unit in Space Boulettes, which is the opposite of Habibi, which is very damaged, sort of familial roots. Possibly, yes. Possibly there's no escape in my books from that. It shaped 20 years of my, formative life. And Elliot the chicken is certainly a stand-in for me. He's the sort of fragile, neurotic, like one who's always dropping literary and biblical references, much to the annoyance of his comrades. So putting that is not a conscious thing in my work, but who knows, it might continue. The big project I want to work on is a nonfiction, sort of essay-driven piece. It would be a big book. I can't reveal too much about it. It relates to China and America's trade relationship with China. But if I do it properly, it won't be a fiction. It'll be a straightforward nonfiction book in comics form.